This is Seoul. Min Jun is 32, and by every conventional metric of the modern world, he has made it. He has the tech job, the Gangnam apartment, and the total personal autonomy his parents once hoped for. He is free to choose his own path, his own partner, and his own beliefs. But his days are governed by a different kind of architecture. Before he even leaves bed, 47 notifications are waiting. His time is partitioned into open office meetings, algorithmic feeds, and optimized consumption, a constant stream of stimulation curated by machines he didn't design. Despite this abundance of choice, his life feels strangely uninhabited. He can recount what he bought or what code he shipped, but the hours themselves feel hollow. It's a dry, quiet emptiness, a sense that his nervous system has stopped expecting anything meaningful to happen. We often treat this feeling as a private failure or a chemical glitch, but Min Jun's isolation is a predictable output of his environment. He lives in a culture designed for extraction, where his attention is the primary resource being harvested. Modernity promised that individual freedom and material success were the keys to a flourishing life. But for millions of people, those two things have proven insufficient on their own. Shift the setting to Ubud, Bali. Here, Kadik lives within a cultural design that prioritizes the exact things Min Jun is missing. Her life is embedded in ritual. She weaves daily offerings for her family temple, teaches traditional dance to local children, and participates in the village council. Her identity is defined not by what she consumes, but by her obligations to her family, her land, and her ancestors. Kadik has the deep belonging Min Jun lacks, but historically this model carries a heavy cost. These traditional structures often provide meaning at the expense of freedom, relying on strict social hierarchies, patriarchy, and the suppression of individual choice to maintain order. This is the paradox of our current civilizational moment. We are caught between a modern individualism that offers freedom without a scaffold and a traditionalism that offers meaning through coercion. One leaves us isolated, the other leaves us trapped. This diagram shows the intersection where a third path emerges, a regenerative culture. It seeks to anchor modern freedom within a voluntary shared scaffold, providing belonging that people can genuinely consent to rather than inherit under pressure. Building a regenerative culture starts with a shift in how we participate in society. It requires creating spaces where we are no longer spectators of our own lives, but active participants in a shared story. In 1970s Brazil, under a military dictatorship, individual agency had almost entirely disappeared. To speak or act against the regime was to risk everything. Here, director Augusto Boal developed the theater of the oppressed. He saw the stage not as entertainment, but as a laboratory for liberation. In Boal's theater, the audience didn't just watch. When a scene of injustice played out, like a family facing eviction, the director would stop the play. He invited audience members to walk onto the stage, take the place of the actors, and physically rehearse how they would resist. This is the core of a regenerative culture. Art becomes the infrastructure for agency, allowing people to practice the courage and collective action they need to enact change in the world. We see these regenerative principles scaling into our laws and institutions, too. For over a century, the Wanganui iwi in New Zealand fought for their river to be recognized as more than just a resource. In 2017, the river was granted legal personhood. The law finally reflected a relational worldview, treating the river as a living ancestor rather than a piece of property to be dammed or polluted. We see it in the Hawaiian language nests, where families worked to revive a suppressed language, restoring the ecological memory and cultural DNA that language carries for the next generation. This diagram shows the primary force working against these efforts. While we try to build a cultural commons, the digital attention economy actively strip mines our focus. Platforms use infinite scrolls and variable rewards to monetize our time, eroding the patience required to build community. A regenerative culture cannot take root if our attention is continuously harvested by platforms that profit from our isolation. We often think of culture as a secondary concern, something added after the real work of politics and economics is finished. But culture is the soil in which everything else grows. The intervention in Afghanistan clearly revealed the immense danger of ignoring this foundation. Advisors arrived with blueprints for markets, elections, and ministries, But those institutions failed because they lacked cultural legitimacy. You can build a ministry, but you cannot import the trust and shared narrative required to make it function. Top-down structural designs will inevitably collapse if the cultural soil beneath them is too depleted to support them. 6 months later, Min-jun is still in Seoul, working the same demanding job, but he has begun to tilt his life back toward participation. He started with simple boundaries, leaving the phone outside the bedroom and reclaiming his first hour of the day from the feeds. He chose silence over the constant harvesting of his attention. He joined a community choir, learning to listen for a tenor harmony among strangers. He started volunteering with a local mutual aid group, helping elderly neighbors with repairs and shopping. His modern pressures haven't disappeared, and consumer culture still surrounds him, but the texture of his daily life has shifted. He is no longer a user waiting for a notification. He is a neighbor showing up for a practice. A meaningful life simply cannot be downloaded, optimized, or purchased. It is generated through voluntary, shared participation in the human commons.